You think you know creepy small towns? You've seen the TikToks. You've read the Reddit threads at AM when you couldn't sleep. Maybe you've even driven through one of those places where the only gas station looks like it hasn't updated its prices since Reagan was in office, and the cashier stared at you just a little too long. But I'm here to tell you something important. You don't know anything yet. Because today we're going to Texas, and not the Austin rooftop bar, overpriced brisket, keep Austin weird bumper sticker Texas. No, we're going to the other Texas. The one where the roads stop being paved and nobody asks why. The one where your phone loses signal for 40 minutes and the only radio station playing is a preacher who's been dead since 1987. The one where the wind sounds like it's apologizing for what you're about to see. Texas has 254 counties, more than any other state. It has over 1,200 incorporated cities and towns, and hidden in that bureaucratic sprawl of jurisdictions and overlapping sheriff's departments are places that feel like they slipped through a crack in reality, places where the census takers don't come back, places where the streetlights flicker in patterns that spell out coordinates if you're paying attention, places where the real estate is suspiciously cheap and the locals are suspiciously quiet about why. Today we're counting down the top 10 creepiest small towns in Texas, and I'm not talking about, oh, there's an old cemetery creepy. I'm talking about lights in the sky that the FAA refuses to acknowledge. I'm talking about fog that seems to follow specific people. I'm talking about towns that technically don't exist on Google Maps but absolutely appear on military satellite imagery if you know where to look. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to subscribe, not because it helps me, I'm beyond help, but because if you accidentally stumble into one of these places without preparation, you're going to wish you had the knowledge I'm about to give you. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future videos on topics that will probably get my channel demonetized. Also, drop a comment right now telling me the creepiest small town you've ever driven through. I want to know, I need to know, because I'm building a map, and that map is going to save lives someday. Let's begin. Number 10, Valentine, Texas. Population, 134, optimism, declining. Every February, Valentine, Texas becomes briefly relevant. The post office gets absolutely slammed with tourists and romantics mailing their Valentine's Day cards from a town literally named Valentine so they can get that cute postmark. Isn't that adorable? Isn't that wholesome? Yeah, let's talk about the other 11 months. Valentine sits in Jeff Davis County in far west Texas, roughly 170 miles southeast of El Paso. To give you some perspective on how isolated this is, if you break down on the road to Valentine, you are not calling AAA, you are not flagging down a helpful stranger, you are sitting in your car, watching the sun set over the Chihuahuan Desert, wondering if your phone will ever have signal again, and contemplating the choices that led you here. The town itself is a scattering of sun-bleached buildings, most of which haven't been occupied since the 1960s. There's a functioning post office obviously, and a few hardy souls who've decided that complete isolation from human society is a feature, not a bug. But here's where it gets weird, the lore. Valentine has no official nighttime. By that I mean there are no streetlights, there is no light pollution. When the sun goes down, you are standing in absolute, complete, cosmic darkness, surrounded by desert, coyotes, and something that the ranchers don't like to talk about. Local legend speaks of the Valentine Watcher, a figure that multiple residents have reported seeing standing motionless on the horizon line at dusk, not walking, not moving, just standing, facing the town. The descriptions are always the same: tall, thin, wearing what looks like outdated rancher clothing, visible only for the 20 minutes between sunset and full dark, then it's gone. Or maybe it just gets closer and you can't see it anymore. Reddit user USCX Drifter posted this 3 years ago in R or Rural Horror. Drove through Valentine to mail my girlfriend's card like an idiot. Stayed until sunset to take photos because I thought it would be romantic. Saw a guy standing about half a mile out in the scrubland. No car, no horse, just standing there. I waved. He didn't wave back. When I looked again 5 minutes later, he was closer. I didn't see him move. I left. I drove 90 miles per hour to Fort Davis and didn't look in my rearview mirror once. Data drop, population, 134 and holding steady because nobody's been born or died here in 6 years, which is statistically improbable. Crime rate, technically zero. Hard to commit crimes when there's nobody to witness them. Median rent, approximately for a month. The catch is you're paying insanity. Job market. The post office hires seasonally. Everything else is figure it out. The conspiracy angle. Here's where my ears perked up. Valentine sits directly under a military operations area, Used for training flights out of multiple Air Force installations. Residents report low-flying aircraft at night completely dark, no lights, almost silent that don't match any known commercial or military patterns. FOIA requests for flight. Logs in that airspace have been denied, citing ongoing operational security concerns. Ongoing, in a town of 134 people, sure. Number 9. Mentone, Texas. Population, 23. Democracy, barely. Mentone is the county seat of Loving County, Texas. Loving County is the least populated county in the entire United States. At the last census, the entire county had 64 people. Mentone has 23 of them, and those 23 people are responsible for maintaining the infrastructure of an entire county government. Let that sink in. 23 people, running a county. The courthouse still functions. There are still county commissioners. There are still elections, though, when your entire voter roll could fit in a mid-sized restaurant. Democracy starts to feel more like a book club that got out of hand. The lore. Mentone exists because of oil. The Permian Basin pumps obscene amounts of crude from beneath this desert, and Mentone is the administrative ghost that manages the paperwork. But the workers don't live here. They drive in, pump, and leave. Nobody stays in Mentone after dark unless they have to. Why? The silence. Not quiet, silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. The kind of silence where you can hear your own heartbeat and it starts to feel aggressive. Visitors report a persistent feeling of being observed, despite there being literally nobody around to observe them. Photographers who've tried to document the town report equipment malfunctions, cameras dying at full battery, audio recorders picking up frequencies that shouldn't exist. One retired oilfield worker who asked to remain anonymous in a 2019 interview with a regional paranormal podcast said, "I worked Loving County for 8 years, only stayed overnight in Mentone twice. Both times I heard footsteps on the gravel outside my trailer, slow, deliberate footsteps. Both times I opened the door and there was nobody, but the footsteps didn't stop, they just moved around to where I couldn't see." Data drop. Population, 23, give or take whoever's brave enough to stay the night. Crime rate, 0 reported crimes in the last decade. When you know all 22 other people in town, accountability is pretty effective. Median rent, unknown. There's essentially no rental market. You buy land from whoever's selling, and you ask fewer questions. Job market, county government, or oil. Those are your options. Choose wisely. The conspiracy angle. In 2017, unmarked white SUVs were spotted parked outside the Loving County Courthouse for 3 consecutive days. They had government plates but no identifying agency markers. Locals who approached were told to move along by men in plain clothes who didn't identify themselves. No official explanation was ever given. The county commissioner at the time told a reporter, "We don't ask about things that don't concern us. That's how you stay alive out here." He said alive, not employed, not safe, alive. Subscribe. Seriously. Number 8. Sierra Blanca, Texas. Population, 553. Border Patrol presence, aggressive. You've probably heard of Sierra Blanca even if you don't realize it. This is the town where celebrities get busted for drugs because there's a permanent Border Patrol checkpoint on I-10, and famous people apparently forget that 100 miles from the border doesn't mean outside Border Patrol jurisdiction, but that's not why we're here. We're here because Sierra Blanca is one of the most psychologically oppressive places I've ever read about, and I've read about a lot of places. The lore. Sierra Blanca sits at the base of Sierra Blanca Peak in Hudspeth County, surrounded by absolute nothing. The town was a railroad stop, then a minor hub, then slowly collapsed into its current state, a handful of buildings, a checkpoint, and the crushing weight of institutional surveillance. The checkpoint isn't just for cars, it's for everyone. Every vehicle on I-10 passes through it. Agents have broad authority to stop, question, and search. The town has become synonymous with the feeling of being watched, inspected, evaluated. Residents describe a perpetual low-grade anxiety that never quite goes away, but the weirder stuff happens off the highway. Multiple travelers who've stopped in Sierra Blanca and ventured into the surrounding desert have reported seeing structures that aren't on any maps: concrete bunkers, chain link enclosures, equipment that looks military but has no markings. When they've tried to photograph these structures, their phones have allegedly glitched or the images have come out corrupted. A user on R or High Strangeness posted this last year. Broke down outside Sierra Blanca, walked toward what I thought was a ranch house to ask for help. Got about 200 yards out and realized it wasn't a house. It was some kind of monitoring station. Satellite dishes, antennas, the whole deal. A black SUV pulled up before I could get closer. Two guys in tactical gear told me to go back to my car and wait for the tow truck. They knew I'd called a tow truck. I hadn't told anyone. How did they know? Data drop, population 553, though the permanent law enforcement presence probably doubles that crime rate. Extremely low, probably because every crime is witnessed by a federal agent. Median rent, $500 month, privacy not included, job market, border patrol, the checkpoint service industry, or leaving. The conspiracy angle. Hudspeth County was proposed as a nuclear waste dump site in the 1990s. The proposal was defeated, but conspiracy theorists allege that certain preliminary preparations were never removed: underground tunnels, concrete storage facilities, infrastructure for something that officially never happened. The county government denies this. The ground-penetrating radar surveys that independent researchers have requested denied, citing private property concerns. Nothing to see here, move along, the men in tactical gear insist. Number 7, Thurber, Texas. Population, 5, former population, 10,000. It was one of the largest cities in Texas. It had an opera house. It had the first brick streets in the state. It was a thriving coal mining town, a company town owned entirely by Texas Pacific Coal Company, and in 1920, it was a legitimate urban center. Today, the population is 5. The lore. Thurber didn't decline slowly, it collapsed. When the coal ran out and the company switched to oil, they didn't just lay off workers, they dismantled the town. Buildings were torn down, bricks were sold, residents were essentially evicted from a town that ceased to exist. By 1935, Thurber was functionally gone, leaving behind only a smokestack, a cemetery, and an overwhelming sense of abandonment. Driving into Thurber today feels like driving into a memory that's trying to forget itself. The remaining structures are scattered and decontextualized. There's a restaurant and a small museum, but beyond that there's just space, empty space where 10,000 people used to live, work, argue, fall in love, raise children. The cemetery is the worst part. Over 1,000 graves, many of them unmarked, belonging to miners who died in accidents that the company had no obligation to report accurately. Visitors to the cemetery report hearing sounds, pickaxes on stone, muffled shouting, the distant rumble of mine carts despite the mines being sealed and flooded decades ago. One former Texas historian, speaking at a 2016 conference on ghost towns, said, "Thurber isn't haunted in the traditional sense, it's haunted by capitalism. The ghosts there aren't individuals there, the collective memory of a community that was created, exploited, and then erased when it was no longer profitable. You can feel the betrayal in the air." Data drop. Population, 5. I cannot stress this enough. 5 people crime rate, statistically impossible to calculate. 5 people aren't a sample size. They're a poker game. Median rent, unknown. The 5 residents aren't talking. Job market, the restaurant, the museum, that's it. That's the entire economy. The conspiracy angle. Here's where it gets spicy. Texas Pacific Coal Company records from the Thurber era are incomplete. Very incomplete. Entire years are missing from the archives. Death certificates for mining accidents list causes that don't match survivor testimonies. And in 2012, a researcher attempting to access sealed company records at a private archive in Fort Worth was told the documents had been transferred to a federal repository for preservation purposes. Which federal repository? Classified. Classified, 400-year-old coal mining records. Sure. Number 6, Ozona, Texas. Population, 2,915. Vibe, what happened here and why won't anyone say? Ozona is the only town in Crockett County. This is important. Crockett County is 2,808 square miles larger than Delaware, and Ozona is the only incorporated community. If something happens in Crockett County, it happens in Ozona, or it happens in the vast, empty ranchland surrounding it, where nobody will find it for weeks. The lore. Ozona looks normal at first glance. It has schools. It has churches. It has a town square with a courthouse that looks like something out of a Western film. But spend any time there, and you'll notice that the locals have a particular way of not talking about certain things. The caves. Crockett County is riddled with caves and sinkholes, many of them unmapped. Ranchers have lost livestock to holes that opened overnight. Hikers have reported hearing sounds from underground, not animals, but something rhythmic, something regular. Local legend holds that the caves are connected to a vast underground network that predates human settlement in the area, and that certain chambers contain pictographs that don't match any known indigenous art style. In 1989, a group of spelunkers exploring an unmapped cave system near OZONA reported finding a chamber with walls that were unnaturally smooth and a symbol carved into the stone that they described as geometric, but wrong, like someone was trying to draw a shape that doesn't exist in 3 dimensions. A rancher outside OZONA, interviewed in 2021, said, "We don't go near the caves. My grandfather didn't go near the caves. His grandfather didn't go near the caves. When you've lived here long enough, you learn there's things underneath this ground that don't want to be found. And we respect that. You should too." Data drop. Population, 2,915, all of them suspiciously tight-lipped. Crime rate, below state average. Either everyone's well-behaved or everyone's complicit. Median rent, $650 a month, comes with free cave anxiety. Job market, ranching, oil and gas, and pretending you didn't see anything. The conspiracy angle. The surveys took 6 weeks and involved dozens of personnel. The official report. 23 pages, heavily redacted. The unredacted portions discuss soil composition. 6 weeks of work. Soil composition. Whatever they found, they're not sharing. Number 5, Alpine, Texas. Population, 6,168, college students, too many to realize the danger. Alpine is the biggest town on this list, which means it should be the least creepy. More people means more witnesses, more infrastructure, more connections to the outside world, right? Wrong. Alpine is the seat of Brewster County, the largest county in Texas and the 9th largest in the United States. It's home to Sul Ross State University, which gives it a veneer of normalcy: coffee shops, young people, the occasional indie band passing through, but underneath that college town surface is something much older and much less welcoming. The lore. Alpine sits in the Davis Mountains, surrounded by terrain that humans have never successfully tamed. The mountains are beautiful in that dangerous way: silent, watchful, indifferent to your survival. And the locals have stories. The MARFA lights get all the attention, we'll get to those, but Alpine has its own phenomenon, the Alpine hum. A low-frequency sound that certain residents can hear but others cannot. It's been documented since the 1970s, and no satisfactory explanation has ever been provided. Those who hear it describe it as the earth vibrating or a generator buried underground. It's loudest at night. It makes sleep difficult. It makes thought difficult. Long-term residents report psychological effects: paranoia, insomnia, a persistent feeling of being observed from beneath. A 2008 study by researchers from UT Austin attempted to locate the source of the hum using sensitive equipment. The study was never published. The lead researcher took a position at a university in Finland shortly afterward and declined all interviews. A Sul Ross student posting anonymously on R or Paranormal in 2020 wrote, "I've been here 2 years. First year I thought I was imagining things. Second year I know I'm not. There's something wrong with this place. The mountains feel like they're watching us. The hum is real. I can hear it in my dorm at AM. And when I mention it to locals, they just smile and change the subject. I'm transferring. I don't care about the credits I'll lose." Data drop. Population, 6,168, many of them transient students who don't stay long enough to understand. Crime rate, moderate for its size, though a surprising number of missing hiker cases remain unsolved. Median rent, $750 a month. The hum is free. Job market, university, tourism, ranching. The university provides a false sense of employment security. The conspiracy angle. In 1997, the Federal Aviation Administration established a restricted airspace zone over a section of the Davis Mountains near Alpine. The restriction is still active. The official justification is military training operations, but no military installation within 200 miles claims responsibility for training in that area. Pilots who've inquired have been told curtly to avoid the zone and ask no further questions. Number 4, Rusk, Texas. Population, 5,429. Prisons, yes. Ghosts, also, yes. Rusk seems normal enough on paper. It's the county seat of Cherokee County, located in the East Texas piney woods, and it has the kind of small-town Texas charm that makes retirees consider relocation. Trees, history, a quaint downtown, also multiple prisons, a state psychiatric facility with a dark past, and one of the most haunted cemeteries in the entire state. You know, charm, the lore. The Rusk State Hospital was established in 1919 as an asylum for the criminally insane. For decades, it operated with minimal oversight, housing patients who had been convicted of crimes but deemed mentally unfit. Treatment methods were, let's say of their era, lobotomies, electroshock, extended isolation. The hospital is still operational, though now as a state psychiatric facility with modern standards. But the old buildings remain, and the cemetery behind the property contains over 3,000 unmarked graves, patients who died at the facility and were never claimed by family. Visitors to the cemetery report anomalous activity, figures moving between trees, cold spots in 90-degree heat, the overwhelming smell of antiseptic that fades as quickly as it appears. The graves have no names, only numbers, and the records linking numbers to identities were partially destroyed in a fire in 1952. A former nurse at a RUSK healthcare facility, speaking to a Texas paranormal podcast in 2018, said, "I worked night shift for 3 years. The things I heard in the old wing, the sounds that shouldn't be there, stopped talking about them after management told me I was overworked. You learn not to go in certain rooms, you learn not to look down certain hallways after AM, and you absolutely never, ever go to the old cemetery." After dark data drop. Population 5,429 plus a significant incarcerated population that statistics often ignore. Crime rate, higher than average for its size. Prisons tend to do that. Median rent, $600 a month, brings age, job market, corrections, healthcare, and a tourism industry built on the very darkness that haunts this place. The conspiracy angle. Records from Rusk State Hospital between 1940 and 1965 contain gaps, significant gaps. Entire patient cohorts disappear from documentation, their admissions logged but their discharges or deaths never recorded. In 2010, a research team attempting to compile a complete patient history was denied access to certain archived materials, citing privacy concerns for living patients. The patients admitted during that period would be, at minimum, 80 years old today. Many would certainly be dead. Privacy concerns, sure. Number 3, Comanche, Texas. Population, 4,187. Historical violence per capita, off the charts. Comanche, Texas is named after the Comanche people, specifically to commemorate the violent conflicts between settlers and the Comanche Nation that defined this region for decades. The town's founding is soaked in blood, and that blood has never quite dried. The lore. Comanche was the site of the 1874 Comanche Raid, one of the last major conflicts in Texas between settlers and indigenous warriors. The violence was mutual and catastrophic. Settlers were killed, warriors were killed, children were taken by both sides. The land itself absorbed the trauma, but the older violence isn't what unsettles visitors, it's what came after. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, Comanche County was notorious for extrajudicial violence, lynchings, mob justice, feuds that wiped out entire families. The courthouse steps, locals will tell you quietly, have been scrubbed multiple times to remove stains that kept reappearing. The old county jail, now a museum, has cells where visitors report feeling overwhelming despair, the kind that makes you want to confess to things you've never done. A museum volunteer, speaking to a local historical society in 2017, said, "I've worked here 15 years. I've seen grown men walk into that back cell and come out crying, saying they don't know why. I've heard footsteps when I'm alone. I've found the display cases rearranged in the morning, even though I locked up personally the night before. This building remembers things, and I think it's angry." Data. Drop. Population, 4,187. Descendants of people who survived things they'd rather not discuss. Crime rate, low. Modern residents seem committed to breaking the pattern. Median rent, $550 a month. The historical violence is baked into the price. Job market, agriculture, small business, and very dedicated historical preservation. The conspiracy angle. In 2005, a construction crew excavating a lot for a new commercial development unearthed human remains, multiple sets. The site was immediately cordoned off by county officials, and the remains were removed by a state archaeological team that locals say arrived suspiciously fast within hours and provided no subsequent documentation. The development was quietly relocated. No report was ever filed. The lot remains empty. What was buried there? Who were they? Why is no one talking? Drop a comment if you've ever been to Comanche. Tell me what you felt. Number 2, Terlingua, Texas. Population, 58. Ghosts, more than that. Terlingua isn't a town. Terlingua is a mood. Located in Brewster County at the edge of Big Bend National Park, Terlingua is officially classified as a census-designated place, which is government speak for too weird to be a real town but too populated to ignore. It was a mercury mining town in the early 1900s. The mercury ran out, the miners left, the town died, and then it came back, sort of. The lore. The Terlingua ghost town is not a reconstruction. It's not a tourist attraction in the theme park sense. It's the actual town, still standing, now inhabited by a small population of artists, eccentrics, and people who are running from something they won't name. The ruins of miners' shacks sit beside functioning restaurants. The cemetery overlooks the entire operation, crumbling headstones watching the living with what can only be described as patience. The people who choose to live in Terlingua are aware that they're cohabitating with the dead. They accept it. They tell stories about miners who appear at dusk, walking toward the shafts that no longer exist. They mention the lights in the hills, not the MARFA lights, something different, something closer, something that moves with apparent intention. A Terlingua resident, interviewed by a documentary crew in 2016, said, "We don't call them ghosts. That feels disrespectful. They were workers. They died for mercury that poisoned them slowly, and the company buried them in that hill and moved on. They're still here because nobody told them the shift was over. We just coexist. You nod when you see them. You don't make sudden movements. It's like living with family that can't quite see you." Data drop. Population, 58, though that doesn't count the ones you can't see. Crime rate, 0. The living are too peaceful and the dead aren't committing crimes. Yet, median rent, for a month, assuming you can find someone willing to rent. Most properties are owned by people who haven't been alive since the 1930s. Job market, tourism, art, chili cook-offs. The famous Terlingua International Chili Championship happens here, which is the most normal thing about this place. The conspiracy angle, mercury mining is brutal on the body. Miners developed shakes, lost their hair, and eventually lost their minds. The company maintained that working conditions were safe. They were lying. Documents from the mining company's operations were acquired by a Texas University archive in 1978, but portions were immediately classified by the EPA as containing sensitive environmental data and remain sealed. Environmental data from 1903, sealed by the EPA, whatever those miners were exposed to. Whatever's still in the ground, the federal government doesn't want you to know. Number 1, MARFA, Texas. Population, 1838. Explanations, none. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. MARFA, Texas has become famous. It's been featured in films. It hosts art installations. Celebrities buy property here. Kanye West recorded an album nearby. Visited. It's the kind of place that travel magazines call quirky and a hidden gem. But beneath the art galleries and overpriced coffee is something that has never been explained, never been debunked, and never ever stopped. The MARFA lights. The lore, first documented in 1883 by a cowhand named Robert Reed Ellison. The MARFA lights are glowing orbs that appear in the desert outside town, typically in the direction of the Chinati Mountains. They hover. They split apart and recombine. They change colors. They move against the wind. They have been witnessed by thousands of people, photographed, filmed, studied by physicists, and they remain completely unexplained. The skeptical explanation is car headlights on distant Highway 67, refracted by atmospheric conditions. This explanation falls apart when you consider that the lights were documented before cars existed. It also doesn't account for their behavior, the way they move in coordinated patterns, the way they respond to observers, the way certain witnesses report the lights approaching and then retreating, as if testing boundaries. A viewing area on Highway 90 allows tourists to watch for the lights at night. Most nights they appear. The locals treat this as normal. It is not normal. A retired Air Force radar technician, speaking anonymously to a researcher in 2014, said, "I was stationed at Biggs Army Airfield in the 80s. We tracked those lights on radar. They weren't aircraft. They weren't weather phenomena. They had mass. They changed altitude instantaneously from ground level to 8,000 feet in under 2 seconds. Nothing we had could do that. Nothing anyone has can do that. My supervisor told me to log them as atmospheric anomalies and stop asking questions. I stopped, but I never forgot." The vibes, MARFA during the day is manageable. The MARFA art installation, a fake protest or in the middle of nowhere, is weird but harmless. The town has good food. The locals are friendly, if a little too comfortable with the inexplicable. But at night, MARFA changes. The desert gets cold. The stars feel too close. The wind carries sounds that could be coyotes but probably aren't. And if you drive to the viewing area and wait, you will see something. Everyone sees something. And when you see it, when those lights are hovering on the horizon doing things lights shouldn't do, you will realize that this is not a tourist attraction. This is not quirky. This is something happening on this planet that nobody understands. And it has been happening for at least 140 years. Data drop, population, 1838 plus whatever's out there in the desert. Crime rate, Low. Hard to commit crimes when everyone's watching the sky. Median rent, $9.00 a month, which is expensive for a town this size. You're paying for proximity to genuine mystery. Job market, art, tourism, ranching, and being professionally unbothered by impossible phenomena. The conspiracy angle. In 1973, the U.S. Air Force conducted a classified study on the MARFA lights. The study's existence was confirmed through a FOIA request in 2003, but its contents remain classified, not redacted classified. A study on lights in the desert, national security classification. What did they find? What could possibly justify that level of secrecy? The MARFA lights continue appearing, the government continues not explaining, and the town continues existing in the shadow of something that defies categorization. This is the creepiest small town in Texas, not because of violence or tragedy or human evil, but because of the unknown. Because of lights that shouldn't exist, doing things they shouldn't do, and 100 years of experts shrugging and saying, "We don't know, we don't know." How often do you hear that from people who should know? Outro. So there you have it. 10 small towns in Texas where the rent is cheap, the silence is deafening, and the things that happen after dark don't make it into official reports. I'm not telling you to visit these places. I'm not telling you to stay away. I'm just telling you that Texas is bigger than you think, older than you know, and stranger than anyone admits. If you made it this far, you're either deeply unsettled or deeply intrigued. Either way, you should subscribe, hit that notification bell, because next week we're covering something even worse, and you're going to want to be prepared. Drop a comment below. Which town would you risk visiting? Which town would you never, under any circumstances, drive through at night? And if you've been to any of these places, if you've seen the lights, heard the hum, felt the silence, tell me. Tell everyone. We're building a map, and that map is going to save lives, or at least explain why some lives can't be saved. Until next time, keep your gas tank full, your phone charged, and your windows up. The roads in Texas go both ways, but the things that live here, they only move forward. See you in the next one.